Well, I was arrested along thousands of other young people. We were mostly very young. Most of us arrested thousands were between the ages of 15 and 28,
Wow. Very
really,
young.
really young,
Very young.
very young. Yeah. And we were arrested in various ways. Like I was arrested at home. And the reason for my arrest was that my school principal, I was in high school, and my school principal had reported me to the Revolutionary Guard, which the police of the revolution, basically, the people who went after dissidents. So they arrested me at home, and a lot of my friends were arrested at home. They had been reported. But there were protest rallies in Iran at the time against the regime, and a lot of people were arrested at the protest rallies. A lot of people were arrested at their workplace. A lot of people were arrested in their schools. So they would take you to Evin Prison. Evin is still entirely operational. It is a terrifying place, massive prison. It can hold thousands of prisoners. And back then, I would argue probably even today, the majority of prisoners entering Evin prison would be tortured. Torture is just a part of prison life. So you get arrested, they would interrogate you. They interrogated me. They asked me questions about my friends, about my political beliefs, about my religious beliefs. And I guess they didn't like some of my answers because I was being honest with them. Anything they asked me, I was honest. I didn't have much to hide. I wasn't a member of some underground political party or something. I wasn't. I was just a student who had protested the changes to the dress code for women and the lack of political freedoms that the government had promised but never delivered. I had protested those. So there was nothing secretive about what I was doing. But they were looking for someone that I knew remotely, not well. And they wanted to know where that person was. And I didn't know. I didn't know. I honestly didn't know. So they asked me about that. I told them I didn't know. They didn't believe me. So they beat me up. So beatings, lashing, mock executions, various forms of physical and psychological torture were just the norm. They were and there are. So yeah, that was just a part of life. And then they would put you in a cell. Back then, Evin was very overcrowded. So in a small cell, which should hold maybe 7 or 8 people, you would have 50 people.
Wow.
So just the lack of hygiene, lack of food, lack of bare necessities of life was really tough, and executions were very common. So every night they would carry out executions, and we would hear them. So, there were firing squads. So when you were in prison and you were in your cell, you would hear the shots being fired, and you knew that these are your cellmates, your friends, your relatives, whatever, and they were being killed by the prison guard. Yes, we were 16 years old. At that age, I think our innocence and our youth, because when you're young, you just have more emotional and physical energy.
Yeah, you said that right.
Like today in this, now I'm almost 60 years old. And to be very honest with you, not only I have less physical energy, emotionally, I have difficulty
Mhm.
dealing with what's going on in the world. I just feel angry, upset, depressed, constantly. Back then, though, I think because we were young, we just had more capacity to tolerate, to survive these really bad conditions. So, and also the um, physical and emotional torture and the bad living conditions were so harsh that I think all of us suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. Actually, it wasn't post-traumatic stress disorder. It was traumatic stress disorder because we were still in prison. It wasn't post, it was during. So it creates a sense of numbness. You go numb. You don't feel very scared. You don't feel very sad. You don't feel very depressed. It creates this void in your emotional persona. You just become blank. Now, we did have some prisoners who did have very severe psychological symptoms. For example, attempted suicide. There were a few of my friends who did attempt suicide, but the vast majority of the prisoners were just blank. You would just get through the day. You would wake up and you just had to survive today. So, again, it was a harsh environment. So, just dividing the food, taking care of hygiene, cleaning the cell, taking care of the sick took a lot of time and
Mhm.
effort.
Right.
So, we just busied ourselves with our daily chores and we just tried to stay alive today and to see what happens tomorrow. And we always kept up hope that we would go home one day, that this whole thing will work out, and eventually we will make it out, despite the evidence to the contrary, the executions and whatnot. And most of the prisoners back then, we were in prison for months or years. So I think keeping up and the friendships that we developed in prison, the friendships that I had with my cellmates in prison, they sustained me. Without those girls, they were the most beautiful creatures, mentally and emotionally and spiritually that I have ever met. That despite the harsh conditions of the prison, we persevered. We helped each other out. We were generous to each other. With everything, with the little bit that we had, we shared. Whether it came to food or like a bar of soap or even trying to celebrate birthday parties. You know, like if it was someone's birthday, we would save food for days and we would make like a make believe like little birthday cake
Mhm.
made of bread and dates and we would sing happy birthday, just little acts of kindness that would go a long way. So yeah, in a place like Evin, you definitely discover the worst of human nature, but you also discover the best of human nature in your cellmates. So that was definitely the case.
Well, that's